Johnny, you don't listen. I told you to pick up all these toys an hour ago. What happened? Weren't you supposed to get your report card today? Come on, hand it over. Let me see. Oh, okay, well, I guess your sister can be our honor student. Johnny, aren't you home late today? Where were you? Detention? Again? This is the third time. Oh my God, you're so stupid, you don't listen. Oh, you're gonna get detention again and again and again and then get suspended? Oh, where's your father? Michael, come down here. You have a disappointing son. So we've all heard these phrases sometimes, and they can be pretty funny, but we know that the words we say can make an impact on others. So throughout my 4 years, I've had a lot of opportunities to get involved in research and become a research assistant in different labs. And before starting any research of my own, I mainly helped grad students and seniors collect data for their experiments. And usually this involved experimenting on little kids, which is a lot of fun. So parents would come with their child, and they'd come into the lab, they'd watch me administer the experiment, and in the end, they would ask me a question. They'd say, oh, well, how did they do? Or they'd say, oh, they would have done better if they were at home. The worst question was, how do I make this smarter? They did so horrible, what should I do? I think, oh no, not this question again. But I would always have the same answer. I'd say, oh, they did so great. They're so hardworking. Why? Because their child was standing right beside them. And what I said could impact the way that that child perceived themselves. And maybe what I said could impact the way that that parent perceived their child. So I was first introduced to the term locus of control one summer when I was doing research with Dr. Stephen Nowicki. He has dedicated a great portion of his career talking about locus of control. Locus of control is the degree to which people believe that they can control the outcomes of events in their lives. So how much you believe that you can control your life. And locus of control is abbreviated as LOC. Now, this isn't about bugs, locusts of control. It's locus as in a point or position on a spectrum. So before I continue, I'll demonstrate. So how many of you have seen the water bottle flipping trend on the internet? Now, if you haven't, it's okay, it's really simple. Basically, you try to flip a water bottle and make it land upright. So this might take me a few tries, forgive me, but I'll try my best. Okay, let's see. Okay, whoa, thank you. Okay, so that was exciting. So this wasn't an April Fool's joke. This wasn't something that is for no reason. I have a question to ask you guys. Do you think I was able to do this because of luck or because I had practiced beforehand? So how many think luck? And how many think I'd practiced beforehand? Okay, great. So if you thought that I was able to do this because I practiced beforehand, you would get a point towards internal on our scale because you believed that I had control over the situation. I practiced, and I was able to do this. If you answered luck, you would get a point towards external on our scale because you believe that outside forces, other things, chance impacted this outcome. Overall, when you take a full locus of control questionnaire, if you answer more points internally, you are internal, or you think you can control most things in your life. And if you get more points towards external, you think other people, other things, powerful others, chance impacts most of your life. Now, what do I think? I'm very internal. I know that what I do can affect my outcome, so I practiced this as much as I could before coming here. I looked up how to do this, figured out a way that this would work for me, figured out little hacks and tips. So I picked a water bottle with a big surface area at the bottom. I figured out how much water to fill, only 1/3 of the way. I kind of figured out when to release. I just practiced this, annoyed my roommate. Yeah, the whole works. So overall, is it more beneficial to be internal or external overall? Studies show internal. Now, before any of you get upset because you pick luck in this situation, don't worry. This is just one question, and you have to take a full locus of control questionnaire to figure out if you're more internal or external. If you take the full questionnaire, it takes many factors into account. Also, you want to remember that locus of control is measured on a continuum. So scoring exclusively internal or external is very rare, and you don't want to really score exclusively internal. Thinking more externally can help in situations where being too internal would be inappropriate. So for example, if you put out your recycling and it was never picked up by your waste management company, that wouldn't be your fault, right? But if you were too internal and you blamed yourself and you thought you can control everything, then you'd be thinking too internally and thinking more externally and realizing that other things impacted your situation would be beneficial. Now, if you put your recycling out on the wrong day, but you blame the company for not picking it up, then you'd be thinking too externally. You wouldn't realize that you were to blame. You were the cause of the problem. So why was I interested in this? What initially attracted me to this? So I'll give you an example. Say there are two students in a classroom, and one is internal and one is external, but they both failed their exam. If you ask them, why did you fail your exam? The internal student would say that this was because they didn't study hard enough, and that's why they didn't do really well. If you ask the external student, they would say they hated their professor and they weren't wearing their lucky shirt. So on the next exam, what would you see? You would most likely see that that internal student studied harder and received a better score. That external student would have just worn their lucky shirt and not seen a change in their grade. And studies reflect this. Studies show that locus of control is the single most important factor in determining academic achievement and success, even when IQ is controlled for. So since the 50s, hundreds of thousands of experiments have been conducted about this concept. And academic achievement is just one of the things that they studied. Overall, being internal helps in many areas of life, and academic achievement is just one of them. So my first example is elite athletes. And I'm just going to be mentioning my favorite studies, but you can go look and find some more of your own. So elite athletes are significantly more likely to be internal. And Muhammad Ali is my favorite example. He has quotes that go, "I am the greatest. I said that before I knew I was." He also says, "I hated every minute of training, but I said, don't quit, suffer now, and live the rest of your life as a champion." Very internal phrasing. 2, drug and alcohol addiction is significantly less common amongst internals. Why? Because they're less likely to be coerced. 2 is bullying. Internal students are less likely to face bullying. So as an internal student, if a bully came up to me and said, "Oh, I hate your shoes. What are those?" I would say, "These are my Crocs, and I like them." Lastly, dialysis patients are significantly more likely to adhere to treatment because if they're internal. Why? Because they believe what they do will impact their health. So if they follow treatment, they'll see better health outcomes. So after reading these papers and hundreds of others of papers, I think there was something missing. I couldn't find something. Why wasn't anyone trying to make people think more internally or just change locus of control? So I looked for more studies. I couldn't find anything. But I thought, if someone could find an intervention, if someone could change locus of control, this would open up a whole new realm of locus of control research. So funny enough, I was taking a psych methods class and I had to pick an experiment to study that semester. I had some time, I thought, oh, why not? So I talked to my group and we decided to see if we could change locus of control in a short period of time, 4 minutes to be exact. Why 4 minutes? Because shorter interventions are easier to implement. And that's what we wanted. If this were to work, we wanted it to be implemented. So what do? We had a pretest that measured locus of control, and then we had our intervention video, and that was only 4 minutes long, and then we had a post-test that measured what happened to locus of control afterwards. So the intervention was a valence video, and valence means charge. So charge with positive language and imagery or negative language and imagery. So our positive video was a workout motivation video. People were waking up early to go to the gym, they were climbing up mountains, lifting up heavy weights, and the external video was negative. It was about climate change and how nothing could be done to change the climate. People were crying, floods were washing away homes, and politicians weren't able to come up with a consensus on what to do. So we hypothesized that after watching the positive video, our participants on average would become more internal and realize they did have control over their lives. And after watching the negative video, they would become more external, realizing that there were some things that were out of their control. So what did we find? I'll show you with some of the data with this table. So on our y-axis, we see locus of control score. So the higher the score, the more external, the lower the score, more internal. On our x-axis, we see which participant group they were in. They either watch a positive video or the negative video. So this blue bar shows our pre-test for locus of control before they watched the positive video. In our post-test, we see that scores became statistically significantly more internal after watching the positive video. This blue bar shows what our locus of control scores were before watching the negative video. And those participants became more external, but this wasn't statistically significant. So overall, the good news is it's pretty easy to think more internally, but it's more challenging to think externally. So why am I here today? Why are you here today? Why do I need your help? So we have to change our locus of control. We know that by just the way we're thinking, that's going to impact our outcomes. So it would be my dream to implement an intervention in workplaces, in schools, in hospitals, but intervention is very difficult without community support. So I thought we would implement some ideas amongst ourselves. So I've come up with some ideas through my research to help you think and act more internally, but you can apply these to other areas of your life, of course. So the first one is parenting. I'm not a parent, so I don't want to tell parents what to do, but we can all change the way we interact with kids. This is important because locus of control is learned, so we want to teach kids the thought process of being internal while they're young. So if your child did really well, don't tell your son, "Oh, you're so smart, I'm so proud of you." Tell them, "You're so hardworking, I'm so proud of you." Why? Because being smart is out of a child's control, but being hardworking isn't. Being hardworking shows that what you do impacts your outcome, and that's exactly how an internal thinks. Also, if your child wants to try something new, encourage them, motivate them, don't tear them down. Make them think that they can do anything they set their minds to as long as they put in the effort. Health. So when trying to achieve a new fitness goal, it's important to believe in yourself. Now, I believe in setting attainable goals, but if you know you can't do something, don't do it. If I wanted to do a backflip right now, that would be a very bad idea because I had scoliosis surgery as a kid. You would have to take me to the hospital across the street. No, no, no. But I know I could run a 10K. So if my goal was to run an 8-minute mile or run a 10-minute mile, but I didn't think I could even run a 15-minute mile, then I wouldn't run at all and I wouldn't reach anywhere close to my goal. Number 2, if you or someone you know has been diagnosed with an illness, it's important to try and believe that your treatment will work. So consult your healthcare providers, come up with a treatment plan, and most importantly, practice it and also believe it'll work. So the placebo effect kind of comes into this. So the placebo effect is really interesting to me. If a lot of times medications work just as well as placebos, drugs that are just sugar pills, they don't really do anything. Depression medications have been shown to work just as well as placebos and even activate the same regions of the brain as SSRIs. So it's important to just believe that something will work. It might actually work for you. So lastly, our environment. So it's important to make sure that you encourage others who are going through a difficult time. Empower them, motivate them, create a positive environment. Why? Because our environment really impacts our perceptions. If you surround yourself with external people who blame others, who victimize themselves, and don't take responsibility for their actions, it's going to be harder to remain as internal as you could be. Lastly, try and change your perceptions and realize that there's some things that you could actually change just by the way that you're thinking. So for example, if you have a situation and you need to realize that you actually didn't do so well, think, could I have done something differently? Change your perceptions. Really be self-actualized. So overall, I want you to take a few messages with you. Surround yourself with positivity and encouragement. Also, be more self-aware. Just know that how you perceive your situations matter. If you need help thinking more internally, just know it may only take 4 minutes. So, let's share more inspiring stories. Let's empower others and ourselves, because ultimately, you can change your life just by changing the way you're perceiving it. Thank you.
Once again.